We'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, for roll call, let the record reflect that Tyra is not present tonight. We wish her well and that she feels better. Board chair comments. So I have 4 comments, I think, for tonight. So last meeting, we were given a petition about adding an optional levy to the ballot. So from our attorney, he says there's no process in state law to put the optional levy on the ballot, and a petition representing the same is not valid. So it's not something that we can do as a board. The second one is of note, we're working on the cell phone policy number 524. So that's in the first reading. For this month, we didn't have a policy meeting for the month of July, but we will again here in August, and that's one of the ones that we're taking a big look at. Yeah, we just got done with Platte River Day. Summer's almost ending here, so that means school's starting up again, and everything, the buildings are going to be buzzing very soon. So that's exciting for everybody. And lastly, for the board and for that, so we've talked about getting a board handbook started. So I have one. Maria sent me a template of one, and MSBA just came out with one that's another template, and they're working on doing a training for that on the 15th here. So once that stuff happens, by the next policy meeting, we'll probably add that to the agenda as well, to start looking at how we do things as a board that way. And that's all I have for board chair comments. Can I get an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Director Trout, thank you.
I'll second it.
Second by Director Hackett. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, recognition of citizens for input purposes. We have Ellie.
All right, good evening. I am here to represent the district with the petition to hold a special election vote on our levy dollar approval with format changes as requested from the lawyer. I guess I didn't receive anything that it was undoable. And I don't know if he's a district attorney paid for by the district, if I have option to talk to him, or do I reach out to a personal, or how does that work for the answer? I mean, like why it's not able to be done?
Yeah, as far as I know, it'd be your own lawyer that you talk to.
Okay, so I still do, I just gotta grab the statute. I still do want to present it, and then I will dig further into it as far as not being able to do it. So it would be, I had received the letter with 3 things to change on our petition. So like I said, I hadn't received anything again from him stating I couldn't present it. So I do want to do that, and I'll read the statute because last time it seemed like there was just a few questions on it. Sorry, I have a lot of things on here. I just want to find it. I wasn't prepared. Sorry. We were just on vacation, so I have a million pictures on here. Okay, here it is. Special elections must be held for a school district on a question on which the voters are authorized by law to pass judgment. The school board may on its own motion call a special election to vote on any matter requiring approval of the voters of a district. Upon petition filed with the school board of 50 or more voters of the school district or 5% of the number of voters voting at the preceding school district general election, whichever is greater, the school board shall by resolution call a special election to vote on any matter requiring approval of the voter of a district. So on the petition this time, it had also been brought to our attention, we needed a purpose. So we have a purpose, which is to restore the voting rights on school levy questions to all registered voters in Royalton School District. Currently, only 6 people, the members of the school board, have assumed the power to decide the levy for every taxpayer in our district. The system affects us all, and yet we do not have a say in it. We believe that every taxpayer should be able to vote on issues that directly impact them. I also needed a summary. In summary, we call upon our school board to extend voting rights on all school referendum revenue decisions to all registered voters within our school district as authorized by Minnesota statute 126C.17. Example is ballot questions are in subdivision 9 of the statute referenced above. So I have those to present. Is there any questions? So I covered the 3 adjustments or changes as requested by the lawyer from the letter I received.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Did you vote last election?
Yes, I did.
Then you had a vote in it. You
You're
voted
correct.
up to here.
Yep.
So
And
that's a little misleading. I just. When I heard your purpose statement, I just wanted, it is offered from the state, that's a board member approved levy, so.
Yeah, and
So we didn't
and-
take them rights or anything. It's kind of,
to a point.
it was given to us.
Yeah.
Okay,
And then
I'm
also,
just not gonna let it go unsaid, so that's all.
yeah, that's fine. Everyone has an opinion.
Yep,
Also, I'd like to state that it's unfair to threaten staff that there will be major cuts if this petition passes. I've heard, I have a salon, I hear many things, that there was an email sent out with my name on it. It's not only me, there's 130 signatures that I got both times. I think it's unfair to put it all on me. I'm just a voice for the district members. It's something I feel strongly in. And I think it's unfair that you're threatening staff or whoever is threatening staff that there will be major cuts. Say the petition would pass, if we can do it after I look into it. That would be up to the 6 board members to adjust how funds would be handled. Everyone I talked to that signed this petition, I think everyone's very aware we're extremely top heavy in this district. And I believe this petition should create no threat to the educators and the education of our children. So that's the 5 minutes for that, and I'd like to present these. And then I also asked on the thing if I could do 5 minutes on the lease levy topic. As I was going through tonight's agenda, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like there will be a presentation on thoughts of passing the mid-state lease dollars onto the taxpayers also.
It's a presentation
Yeah,
of what would
presentation.
happen if we did that.
Okay. I think it's absolutely absurd after we just presented district taxpayers against taking our dollars without being able to vote on it. Just some things I'd like you guys to all think about is how many of those students are district and open enrolled kids? And then I'd also like you to think about, as district taxpayers and parents of the district, they're already paying taxes. They pay for their kids to be in sports, they pay to watch the sports, they pay for them to go to prom, they pay to watch prom. any activity they're involved in, they pay for. We have volunteers that fix baseball fields. We have fundraisers for uniforms. We have, the parents and district taxpayers are so involved already. I just think it's crazy to ask them to pay more money. If I'm looking at the budget right, we have an $11+ million budget. And we're willing to take more money from the district members when people are struggling to make ends meet the way it is right now. We continue to spend more money. Testing and student numbers drop. The extra dollars are not going to staff and materials that do anything for the educating of our children. And that's just my input.
I ask you a question, Helen?
Yeah.
Am I right in understanding that the collective voice of those who signed that petition is that they're concerned about the district funding? And how we're spending
Absolutely.
it? And that they want to have a say?
Yep.
More to say.
I have heard from many people I talk to, and I love talking, so I've spent a half hour at each person's house. Very concerned with, the spending of the district, and that people are seeing we're going towards that deficit, if not in the deficit a little bit. And I think people are just sick of their money being taken and not having a say. I think that's just the bottom line of it.
Thank you.
So reports and news, so, finance committee.
Finance committee met on July 24th. We had a presentation from PMA Financial Network, which we will get the opportunity to experience again tonight for everyone at the board. And we discussed the financial numbers, which Heidi will go through for all of us as well. Our adopted budget was revised to reflect $11,192,460. But our actual expenses this year capped out at $11,620,000 and $620,157. So we ended at a deficit of $427,697 this fiscal year. Salaries were one of the things that were coming in over budget. That's about it for the finance committee.
Okay. We did not have a policy committee meeting, but we have 3 policies that are going for approval tonight. One is 503 student attendance. The statute added religious accommodation in there. Next one is 704. So inventory of fixed assets talks about how it goes through UFARs. And that was just a policy to look at for every 3 years. And 807 health and safety had the statutes updated in there and spelled out. So those are the 3 going for that. In second reading, we still have 902, which is the district use of facilities and equipment. So that one's gonna probably be there for 1 or 2 times. And then I already talked about, we have 9 new ones for our first policy readings. And one of the bigger ones is 524 that we're looking at, which is internet technology and cell phone acceptable use and safety policy. And mid-state, so I've had a lot of conversations and driving mid-state to have the same policy type meeting that we have. So right now it's been an email and, hey, you approve these changes, and a lot of no's came back. So we're working on actually getting together as a policy committee and doing that there too, which will be great once we can actually get that done. So that's all I have for that report. Any questions on the reports? Finance? Okay, Superintendent report.
Okay, you want to pull up the communications plans? We did get the base, utilizing our strategic planning committee and staff input and through community survey, we now have, a communications plan that, of course, we will revise as necessary throughout time, but you can see here where, we have our purpose, we have the stakeholders and channels, and we have the contact. So here you can click on any one of those and get emails, phone numbers, or make any sort of suggestion to the Littleton Voice. And then over there you have how teachers, principals, everyone will communicate with different stakeholders, and those are all, you can click on those to get to that information. And then really good feedback was to provide this how-to section. And so this is for parents that can go in and check on how to utilize these different technology tools. So thank you, Nicole, for making it look nice. And I appreciate all the input from staff and the strategic planning committee. And in saying that, we do have a strategic planning meeting coming up in on September 9th. Oh, no, that's our board meeting. Oh, it didn't get added. I will double check the dates, but we do have a September strategic planning committee meeting, and I'm inviting the community to please come and be a part of that. We're going to be taking a look at the strategic plan again and kind of make sure that our action steps make sense or make any changes. So I invite them, and also invite the community. Whenever you have questions, feel free to contact us at any time. Principals and myself, Heidi, our business manager, are always willing to meet with people and then talk through things if they have questions and explain and answer any of those that we can. So that's all I have.
Okay. Any questions for superintendent?
Oh, one other thing. Our board committees are also in the public, so if the public would like to come and observe those finance committee meetings and policy committee meetings, they're welcome to do so at any time.
Business manager report.
Start up my computer in case there's any questions. Good evening, Board Chair, Mr. Hofstad, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Christine Werkamp. Tonight's fiscal year 2024 update is for the month June 2024 ending. You can scroll forward. This enrollment slide presentation has been the same since we ended the month of May. No information has changed since we haven't started a new school year, so we ended the year around 910 students that will become published as adjusted daily membership and adjusted pupil units, with information that will be forthcoming from MDE for final fiscal year 24 results. General fund revenues, month end June 2024. I want to make a note that all of the information shared tonight still remains as preliminary. Our fiscal year ended on June 30th. However, all of fiscal year end tasks take several months leading up to our audit, which is scheduled for the first week in October. So as I begin to work through our fiscal year end checklist, these numbers will continue to be updated and updates shared with the board going forward. Specific to revenue, as a percentage of the revised budget, 90%. That is right on track, as one would expect. State aid is received up to 90% within the fiscal year, and then the remaining 10% is built in as a receivable as I work through year-end processes. So I would expect that revenue will come in on budget, if not over budget, considering we're still in preliminary phase. General fund expenditures, again, as of month end June 30th, again, preliminary. I haven't even begun to look at expenditures by object code, as you can see here. Those are itemized out as salaries, wages, benefits, purchase services, supplies, materials, capital expense, and other expense. There's a lot of adjustments that go into fiscal year end tasks, and I have not done that yet. Overall, just looking preliminary, we are over budget just by about 4%. Mostly that is due to fees for services, so any vendors that we contract with outside of school districts, employees that provide services for our students. We are over budget there, and I will continue to look to see where we can make some adjustments. I do want to make mention, Maria, you'd mentioned that we're over budget in salaries, wages, and benefits. We are about $130,000, again, preliminary, over budget in both salaries, wages, and benefits, which when you consider a $9 million budget in salaries and benefits, $130,000, again, preliminary is quite close. And so overall, I'll continue to work through expense. We have some adjustments to make from fund transfers between different funds. And I'll continue to update the board as information becomes available. Any questions?
Not yet.
Good, thank you.
Principal report.
Chairman Hofstad, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Burkina, Joel Swenson, high school principal. Report tonight very quick. We will be starting in-service week next week with teachers coming back. We are doing an AI training on Tuesday and then an academic vocabulary training all day on Wednesday. And it looks to be two very good days. We'll also be training on our new data, our data warehouse Proliftic, which will be on Tuesday afternoon. So we have 2 full days of training that we will be kind of kicking off the school year with. A report on summer school. Back in the old days when we just did summer school by without the formal summer school model that we have now, we would recover approximately 4 to 7 credits over the summer from students working through classes. That number was obviously limited because we had limited help to take care of that and didn't really have a formal process for doing it. This summer in summer school, we recovered 29 credits. And that was after the first week. And so we still have students that are working through that. I expect that number to be in the 30s by the time summer ends. Our goal is for those students to have their credit recovery completed by the start of the school year. So very successful. I'd like to thank Mr. Shaw for leading the high school and summer school effort. It was very successful. Kids were here, they were working, they showed up here, got to work. And the incentive is when they were done and had completed the required credits that they were remediating, that they were finished with summer school. And so the students came and got to work, and if you would have walked down to that end of the building, you didn't even hear them down there. They were hard at it. And so it was good to see. And like to thank Mr. Shaw for that. Questions?
Oh, thank you.
Chair Hofstad, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Werkamp Herman, Tony Newman, principal at the elementary school. Like the high school, we're gearing up for our PD days next week, and then workshop week, which is very, very busy. That last week of August with open house that Wednesday the 28th, as well as September 3rd. And so those things open up for scheduling on Monday the 19th. And so we're anxiously awaiting everybody coming back. I hear people coming into the building here and there, getting their rooms ready, especially with the updates to the classrooms. People are getting their stuff put back together. So it's nice to see. Summer school wise, a big change from previous years, having it in June. It has worked out well. We had 33 kids registered. Average membership in attendance was 27. Various things happen, June, people have week-long vacations, things come up, people get sick, it happens. But we had 3 teachers and we grouped them together. Previous grades, K1 were together, 2, 3, and 4, 5. So it was nice to get those kids in, worked hard, got them breakfast, got them lunch, got to play outside, did SEL stuff as well. But we really honed in and it was a success. Questions?
Oh, excellent. All right, consent agenda approval. So the board is consenting to approve items listed below as presented at one time. At any point, the director can pull an item off the consent agenda for further discussion. So we are looking at approval of regular board meeting minutes from 8 July 24. The claims, accounts, and financials, the approval of resignation and terminations, the approval of new hires, approval of the student handbook, the employee handbook, and then approval of bread, dairy, and fuel bids with recommended approval of Central Soda fuel, Gas Clay for dairy, and Panagold for bread. Does anybody want to make that motion?
I'll move it.
Director Hackett,
Second.
second by Director Roaring. Thank you. All right, discussion.
I have a few questions about the claims, accounts, and financials.
Good.
My first question is, when I was looking at the check registry, I remember a presentation once, a couple months back, with some information from, Principal Newman about the Ride 360, app not really working out well for our busing services, and I see that we have signed our contract with that company, the Tyler Technologies. I was wondering if anybody can inform me if they provide other services or why we are continuing to have that purchase.
Correct.
That's the treasure, so that doesn't go. Does our what? The routing for the buses? Oh, okay, that's not, so this Ride 360 is not something that we're. It might be, Ride 360, they have a new name, but it's a new, what's it called?
The new app is my ride.
My Ride.
K-12.
My Ride as well. And are we gonna utilize that? Yeah, service, and so that's gonna be, so they'll have badges again, and the kids will be able to
No.
check it out.
No, we're not doing badges.
Oh,
That's not part of it.
that's not part of it all. I was just wondering if I just wanted to have clarification on, I thought we discontinued service for that because it wasn't working. The only other thing I wanted to make a comment on is as I was looking through, it seems that this was the month, last month was the month that we had a lot of renewal of contracts. And I'm not 100% familiar with all of these, but I just like to highlight the fact that I've seen a lot of purchase services totaling the ones that stood out to me. There's others that I could obviously tell were for student achievement, so I didn't highlight those, but to the degree that we partner with these entities that I don't even understand or know anything about, MAAE, MAHS, MASA, MASB, MCEA, MREA, you know, et cetera, we have $50,000, almost $51,000 worth of purchase services there. And I just had a question for clarification from Dr. Veerkamp here. I once remember you saying, or presenting to us that we should join the MREA association because it's for our area, and I thought that was going to take place of our membership to a different, to see. Okay. I just wanted, I couldn't remember which one it was to replace MRE, because it's the rural. Okay, so I just wanted to remember which one it was trading out for. Yep. C was the other one, schools recommendation. Okay.
The acronyms that you had mentioned.
Yeah.
Are they coded to fees for service or are they coded to subscriptions? Because those all are subscriptions that the district purchases to operate the operations of the school.
Well,
district.
they're this MASA, that's
Yeah.
schools.
So those would be
Associations.
memberships for us to
MSBA.
be able to do the
I guess
work we
I
do.
wouldn't personally be able to tell you what the codes are. for the
Oh, you
schools.
mentioned fees for service. That's why I
Right.
thought maybe you knew.
I
that.
don't know the codes,
Oh,
sorry.
so they're
but
not fees for service?
I couldn't tell you, I was just looking at the
Oh.
checkbook accounting.
Those would be subscriptions.
Yeah,
and
those are the
memberships.
associate memberships. Right, Principals Association, high school and elementary. Right. And there was a purchase in here from MSBA for board book services. Is that above and beyond our contracted services with MSBA? Is that an additional or is that just part of our contracted services that we get from MSBA? Because
That's
an
for-
$8,000 expense just to have board book seems excessive. If that's an à la carte, I was just wondering if that's an à la carte charge that they're, but they're
That's
certain.
the That's the subscription we pay to have board book as a host of all of our board meetings,
Right.
documents, agendas.
Right,
minutes.
I understand what the purpose it serves. I just was wondering if it was a part of our contract and it's just, you know, this is the month we pay it, or is it an à la carte that we add onto? We already pay to be a part of MSBA. Is this an à la carte thing that we purchase from them,
This is specifically for board book that we pay annually.
but they host it? Because the
Correct.
charge goes to them.
Correct.
Just trying to understand all the charges. Thanks. That's all my questions.
Okay. Good questions. Anybody else? I have one question, for handbooks. So 90 pages and 86 pages is a lot of handbooks. There's a difference in the elementary breakfast and lunch prices and the middle school, high school breakfast and lunch prices. And the preschool breakfast and lunch prices in each of those
Yeah.
handbooks.
They will be all the same, as the elementary.
Okay,
They just want us to make that change.
perfect. That was the question. All right. And then we got one bid for fuel, one bid for dairy, and we actually got two bread bids this year. That's pretty good. One was double the price, but that was there. So. All right, any other discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. All right, we'll go to the K2 towers, proposal.
Yeah, so this is a second look, just wanting to know if we talked about this last month, just wanting to know if the board wants to accept their offer or deny it.
Well, I'll make a motion that we deny it.
I'll second it.
All right, discussion. So by denying it, that will tell them that they either need to pay us or,
Yeah,
They're
or
gonna-
they might remove the tower, and that's their choice.
Yep.
Can we tell them to remove the tower? I mean, if they're not renting that property from us anymore, why do we want their tower
Well,
there?
they'd have to pay us the money, right? So if they would,
Right.
do you want us to say that we no longer want?
I mean, I would say take it down or, I mean, at this point, can't we name our price, right? It's on our property, so either take it down or
They're
pay
paying,
us what you were paying.
aren't they still paying us though, and they just want to stop?
Right,
Right, so it's either take it down or pay,
right,
continue this contract,
Right.
is what we're saying, right?
correct. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, for sure.
Yep.
And that's what the motion is.
Yep.
yeah, and I don't know if we need to go that far. I think maybe we find out what they say in a response.
Right. But we can't just let them keep it there without paying us, so either.
Yeah, right.
Right.
They gotta
If
pay.
the tower's there, we have to get something for it.
And I don't, and then remember too, in that agreement, they wanted to extend it another 30 years.
Right.
It seems like, okay.
Any other discussion? All right, so I have a motion and a second, to deny K2 Towers to continue doing their stuff there. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. All right, Minnesota districts revenue rankings.
Cool, do you mind pulling that up, please?
We are,
So this is a document that I've been sharing with all of the districts that I support. It's the 23-24 revenue rankings per ADM for the 328 school districts and public school districts in the state of Minnesota. The information was compiled by C and distributed on behalf of Minnesota districts by MREA. So if you want to scroll all the way to the bottom, ranking number 1 all the way through 328. Goes down a ways. So Royalton is at the way bottom. We are 6th from the bottom ranked at 323. We receive just $10,608 per adjusted daily membership or per student, as compared to the state average of 14,479 and a district average just over 14,000. And so as the district continues to responsibly manage the finances, we have considerably less amounts of revenue to support the students, meet their needs, etc. And an important concept to consider when we're doing what we do, which is serve kids. We do have some highlighted on there of surrounding districts, like-sized districts, proximity of location and our conference. And some of that information is helpful to ascertain where we go forward from here.
So what would change that? So that 10,608 is if we had 850 ADMs or if we had 912 ADMs.
No, so this is just per student. So regardless of whether we had 1,000 students or 900 students.
Right.
We received $10,608 for each of those students. What would change that amount is operating referendum, which we don't have. Any additional levy supports, depending on what the board has authority to consider and what the voters have authority to consider. Additional types of categorical funding from the state or federal government, a lot of which we as a district in Royalton aren't eligible to receive. Some of those would be like QComp. We don't receive.
Another one would be if you have a higher free and reduced population, you get more compensatory dollars and title dollars from the federal.
So there's a lot of different variables in which districts are funded based on the demographics of their district, ranging from student demographics to property demographics to everything in between. I will say, based on my experience and expertise, it's much more challenging to work balancing budgets when you're at the bottom of this ranking.
So most of the schools above us, I'm assuming we must be one of the only ones that don't have a referendum technology levy or operating levy.
That's not true.
Correct.
So there's about 90 districts
That
that do not have operating referendums, and the majority of them sit in central to northern Minnesota.
So a third don't.
Yeah, like, so like Upsala has a small operating referendum. Little Falls has a small one, I believe, but like Peters doesn't have one. I don't believe Staples Mountain does. Yeah, I believe it's in 90 districts. Don't.
Concur. So next I will turn over the floor to our partners from PMA Financial. As Member Trout had mentioned, Michael and Greta had presented on behalf of this information to our finance committee. Finance committee felt it important that we should share this information with the board. And so both Michael and Greta are here tonight to present some information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good evening, glad to be here, Chair Hofstad, members of the board, Dr. Werkamp. We're gonna talk a little bit here just in this first segment of our agenda about the services PMA can offer in terms of enhancing the school district's investments and helping you manage the cash flow for the school district. But before I do that, in the slides here, I'm gonna kind of scroll through just an introduction to who PMA is and in our service to school districts. We are a company that works primarily with the investment and management of public funds. including over 200 of the school districts in the state of Minnesota. So that's about 2/3 of the school districts. In terms of working with bond proceeds, we work with $10 billion. The cash flow service I'm going to talk to you about now, we actively manage for over 100 school districts across the state. The funds are well, kind of a base part of our program is what's called the Mintrust Fund. It's a money market fund where school district funds are held. That fund had over $4 billion of assets in it this summer, and that's just school district money in the state of Minnesota. This fund is not owned by PMA. We are hired to manage the fund and to inform our school districts, clients about it. It is owned by the school district clients who are a part of the fund. Your district became a part of the fund in 2007. So you have utilized our services before. It's governed by a board of 15 trustees, similar to a school board, in that there's revolving terms, and all of the member districts get to vote on who those trustees are as they come up. The next couple of slides give you a full list of all the districts across just in the state of Minnesota with which we work. So we have broad expertise in finances for school districts in many aspects of the overall finances, but the key part that we're going to talk about to start here is related to our cash flow and investment management services. So these services are really tied to helping you maximize the investment earnings within a framework of making sure that the funds are held in, safe. And but we're in a time where there's lots of interest earnings available. And so on the next slide, one of the services that we provide to school districts is a cash flow service. This looks 2 years forward every single day, trying to have a good projection on how much cash the school district has in the bank for every single day going forward. The primary reason for this is that you can, by having that information, you can maximize your interest earnings by making smart investments and understanding where you are. You can also identify to make sure that you have enough cash on hand. And to the extent that you are considering larger capital purchases as a school district, from time to time you may, and whether or not it's a facility or other large capital purchases, this gives you good information about how that's going to affect your cash position. Cash position is different than fund balance. When you look at your audit, your fund balance, cash is the actual number of dollars that are in the bank today. Fund balance is affected by lots of other accounting rules when you look at your audited financial statements. So the next few slides here show what our overall some of the ways that we manage the cash, but it kind of all boils down to the fact that if we have a good view, good information about how much money you have available to you every day for the next 2 years, we can, as an administration, with our help, we can give you some concept of whether or not you're able to make an investment in a CD or another very safe investment like a US Treasury security or other items that are out there. And typically when you lock up the funds, whether it's for 6 or 12 or 18 months time, you're going to earn a higher interest rate over time. And not every single time, but this chart here shows the lines going up and down are the daily rate. And those red lines are investments that an actual school district has made. And oftentimes you're going to be above that daily rate over time by making long-term fixed rates investments, like as you would as a person, personal making a CD investment. We're not talking about stock market stuff here. We're talking about very secure, safe investments that the district considered. On the next slide, it shows the whole point of doing this is how to increase your investment earnings, to enhance what you have available in your budget. Every dollar that you earn is a dollar that you have available to you to help support the school district and the programs that you have to offer. This shows if you had $1 million and you were able to earn an additional 0.5% above the current rate, you would have another $5,000 within your funds for your use. If you had that $1 million, you're able to earn an extra 1% because you were actively managing this. You could have an additional $10,000. If you had that on $5 million, you could have another $50,000 to use. So it's money that's offered out there with good planning and good information. The next slide in here shows a model of what our cash flow looks like in terms of the model. But the kind of continuing forward, the way that we do this is that we'll work with your school district staff and with Heidi and other and business staff to understand the way that you receive and expend your money throughout the year. And you'll have a dedicated person dedicated to you to go through that. And help you execute the investments, and it's all at the discretion of your staff. PMA doesn't ever make an investment without your authority. So we do the agreement for us to provide this service to the school district. If you just scroll forward 2 slides, please, thank you. Is that we don't charge the school district any fee to maintain the cash flow. The agreement is that your district state aid dollars, the money that you receive from the state, goes into the Mint Trust Fund directly. It doesn't have to be held there for any period of time. You can move it out to your local bank to pay your bills and other charges as they come due. But it comes through that Mint Trust Fund as the agreement without any additional fee to the school district. So, the purpose here is to increase your interest earnings. And we're experts in doing that and helping manage over this for over 100 districts. We're in a time period now where interest rates are higher, especially short-term interest rates. But the expectation is that interest rates are going to go down. That's what the market believes. That's what, people are betting with real money. The market's not always right, of course. We don't know that for sure, but that is certainly the expectation. And if things follow as expectation holds, the daily money that you hold will ride down as the yields or the interest rates ride down on that. So there's a good time to be an opportunity to lock in some of those interest earnings as rates are in a higher market environment, depending upon how that goes forward. So because you are a member of the Mint Trust Fund already, because of past work we have done together, there's no formal board action required or no resolution that's required of you, but I know we wanted to make this a topic, and the Finance Committee has discussed it a couple times to talk about engaging in this service and working to maximize those interest earnings. So I'm happy to take any questions on this piece.
I have one question. When we are determining what number we want to invest, is there a recommended amount percentage that you usually keep back out of this, or you put all in? Because our district membership fluctuates, and I don't know what on the other districts that you work with, if they fluctuate to the degree that ours does, but if we begin the year at 400 or at 940 students and we end the year at 910, is that going to be detrimental to us?
Yeah, so you would never have all of your money invested at one time. There's always going to be some money that is liquid and available to you on a daily basis to pay your bills. And one of the things that we work through with administration is understanding, okay, what is a comfort level in terms of a dollar amount that always needs to be available for bills to pay today. And so that's a conversation in terms of the implementation of this that we would work through to make sure it makes sense with what the people who know the most about your budget know, which is, the professionals you have hired to help you with that. And so that's a part of the conversation we have as we build out the cash flow for the school district. Sure.
I think we're good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything from the Finance Committee? You guys have talked about this a few times.
No, just beyond that one question I just asked, otherwise I don't think there was any questions.
Is there a recommendation?
I don't see it negatively impacting us. I think it's a positive option that we could move forward with. Why wouldn't you want your money to earn money?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's what I was wondering, because you guys have talked about it way more than the group has, so.
That would make that.
Oh, yeah, yep. Yeah, and we're not going for approval or anything this month, so.
So really, what we're looking at here is take money from the bank, right? That we have in town here and move it into some kind of, other fund, right? That kind of.
not really.
Let's go Robert.
Not do that. So currently, we have the majority of our funds in the Minnesota School District Liquid Asset Fund, which is a similar type of account as the Mint Trust account. We don't keep our funds locally to that level or to that amount or to that extent because of the interest rate we receive on that Minnesota Liquid Asset Fund, again, similar to the rates that we would receive in the Mintrust fund. So we maintain those balances in that Minnesota Liquid Asset Fund. They do not provide cash flow services, so the benefit of working directly with PMA and having our funds instead go into that type of trust account would be that we can make better decisions in investing dollar amounts that will provide a rate of return on the interest earnings over a period of time that we're not doing now. We're currently receiving interest income in the account that they're currently in. We just have a better means to ladder out future investment earnings than we do now. That answers your question. So if we're taking the money that's in a similar type of account and moving it into a different entity, but similar type of account.
And what PMA offers is to help go through the budget to say, we want to stick $500,000 there, and like, well, no, you should probably only do 300,000 because these expenditures between what you guys do and their
Correct.
expertise.
And I'm very familiar with the type of cash flow services they provide. Having about 9 years of experience working directly with them in other districts.
Sounds like a good deal.
Almost like changing financial advisors, really. Is kind of what we're trying to-
Otherwise, other than we would receive more financial advising by making this change.
I'm hoping to get that 0.5% or 1% possibly, right? It's kind of what, if we were to get that, that's the fund, that's the money we would get, right? So obviously it's a investment where there's no it's a guarantee, but that's what we're looking to hope to get is 0.5% or 1%. Or something.
It would
That's
depend on the rates. It could be more.
Right.
Certainly depending on the type of investments we consider. We would never lose, well, we wouldn't invest in investments that we would lose out on our principal balance.
Right,
We would always earn.
something.
Anything to add to that? What do we have next? Lease levy. Have you continue the conversation?
So there's just one slide in here, but this is illustrating the impact of levying the mid-states lease on your taxpayers, beginning with the taxes payable in 2025. You're at the time of year when you'll be asked next month to approve your preliminary levy. And that's really the first step in the process of making a tax levy. And so if you want to include the option for the school board to make that tax levy in terms of the mid-states levy, when you make your final levy, which happens in December, and the taxes get levied the next calendar year, there needs to be some consideration of whether or not you want to include in the preliminary levy. When you do your September levy, once that number is set, the dollar amount cannot go up, except for there's a couple of exceptions, and the biggest one of those being if you have a question on the ballot in November, which my understanding you do not this year. So once that dollar amount is set in September, then the money can't go up. So this is a timely discussion in terms of whether or not the board would want to consider this now or in a future year. But that lease amount is about $42,000 per year, and based upon your tax base as of the current year, this gives you an illustration of the annual tax increase related to just this part of your levy. So just to pick one out, on a $300,000 home, that's going to be $19 per year, or about $1.50 or $1.60 per month throughout the year in relation to the tax impact. I'm also illustrating there some commercial and different taxes with the way the Minnesota property tax system works. It divides properties out based upon a classification system. So residential property pays differently than commercial or agricultural property. This isn't representing every classification, but the primary ones that you have in your district are represented here. In this number, we're not assuming any tax-based growth. There's been significant tax-based growth in the last few years. I believe this is the most conservative way to show it to you as a school board. And then one other thing that I think is sometimes discussed with the lease levy is whether or not it applies to the ag to school credit. That's an important, really important credit that saves a lot of money for your agricultural property owners. That does not apply here. That only applies to bond issues that you have directly done as a school district. So this is an option. It's not something you've done in the past, although the school district is allowed to levy for these kind of cooperative districts, and you have a special part of your levy that the state law allows you to do this. Many school districts across the state do utilize this levy for similar types of services engagements.
That's the only slide.
And all those are for the year.
That is an annual tax increase, correct?
How many of our mid-state other schools that are in there with us? How many do this right now?
So I'm understanding all of them. There's 4 others. And I don't know what Little Falls relationship is in that, because they were a member and then they're not a member and they utilize services, and I don't know if they paid for some of that building or not, I can't recall. But Onemia, Upsala, Pierce, and Swanville would be the other 4.
If we would do this, what does it do to the budget? So right now, this is getting paid out of the general fund?
Correct. How long have we been a partnership? School with Mid-State, how many years? Does anybody know that?
At least 26.
Yeah. So for 20 to 30 years, we've been just paying it out of the general. No, this building was just built. I don't know what year that was before me too. I don't know, Joel, do you remember?
2019.
2019 it was built. Prior to that, they were out and they had their programs in different districts. Like their summer program might have been over here. So, yeah. And then Sourcewell, I believe, helped donate money to this building as well. To the building.
Right, the lease levy can only be used for certain types of purposes, and this is for the actual physical facility. It's not for their operations.
Right.
How much longer do we have to pay on it? If it's $42,000 a year, is it? Does it say? Or is it something you do for the next 10 years? Is it a 20-year deal? And what time do you get it? You decide every year, but how much money do we owe them yet for that building?
I'd have to look it up.
You know,
I don't know.
Yeah,
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that today. You can follow up.
Yeah.
I thought it was 20.
I think it's 20 years, but I could be wrong by half, so.
Right. When I wasn't here when that happened, we agreed to pay our portion of that building when it was built. It's kind of,
All 5 schools did.
Yeah, before it was built, they had that,
Right.
ready to agree on a price kind of thing.
And like I said, Sourcewell.
So paid for about half of it, yeah. At that time, we were busing kids a lot further. And it was costing us about this in busing. That's why it got approved in Railton, because we were spending almost as much money busing as what the lease levy was. So. By the time you drive a kid hour and a half, and then the driver drives home, turns around, goes back or sits there and waits, so That's what I had added up.
How many kids are using this facility now? Do we have a number?
It varies every year.
On average on?
It's really dependent.
Right.
Yeah.
When we can look at past history,
Yeah,
right?
I'd have to double check on our total numbers.
Sure.
It also serves the 18 to 22 population as well.
Sure.
All right, any other questions on the state levy slide? All right, we'll go to the refunding the bond option.
All right. This one should be a little more fun. We're gonna hopefully talk about saving money instead of spending money, which is not a common thing at school boards. So what we're looking at today is refinancing or refunding the bonds that were originally issued in 2015 based upon a voter approval of the school district's taxpayers. And so there was 25,260,000 that was originally issued. There is about $18 million of that left outstanding as we sit today. And as of February 1st, 2025 is the first opportunity which you can consider prepaying or refinancing those bonds with underneath the terms of the bonds. And so on the next slide, we're showing that we updated this last week, and the finance committee's members understand this, that this is based upon interest rates as they stand at any point in time. But this would be to pay off the remaining maturities of the bond issue and replace it with a new bond issue for savings to the taxpayers. The estimated gross savings is about $745,000 as of a week ago. That savings is net all of the cost of issuing the bond. And that savings is truly savings that goes back to the taxpayers. This is not money that goes back into your budget. This is money that goes back in the form of a reduction in the school district tax levy. Again, the $745,000 is kind of based on market interest rates. I will tell you since we printed this to provide it to you, interest rates have gone up a little bit. And so I would expect it to be a little bit lower than that today. It's been somewhere, it was all the way down to like 175,000, and it's been in the 700,000 a couple times throughout the year as we have monitored this. When we were a couple weeks ago, when we presented to the finance committee, it was somewhere in the $300,000 range of savings. So it is dependent on that to change. On the next slide, it shows the detail of what this looks like. So the $745,000 is not all cash you receive at one time. It is a reduction in the payments throughout the remaining life of it. We're not extending the payments any longer. It's the same number of years that you had paid off before. So you can see there in the right column, it's saving you about $65,000 to $70,000 a year, each year, throughout the remaining life of the bonds, which are scheduled to fully mature on February 1st of 2036. The next slide I've included kind of just out of way of transparency, an estimate of the cost of issuing the bonds and going through this process, what that looks like. Again, the savings is net of all the cost of issuance. There's fees to PMA to help you with this process. You also will need to hire attorneys. There's a rating agency fees that's included in there. And so I wanted to be transparent about what that looks like. And in terms of the overall risk of these fees, they're all contingent upon this happening, with the exclusion of really one of those fees. And that is if we go through the process and we have a bond rating agency write a report about the school district. So this is a really important process in terms of earning the interest rate that we're projecting. If we go through that process and then the interest rates are not in a favorable position, you could be in a position where you need to pay the rating agency. But that report is good for a period of time. We could use it for about 6 months worth of time. And so that is the one kind of risk of potential cost that the school district could incur. And we do not control what interest rates look like. So I wanted to make sure that was known. The next slide shows tax impact. Now, we showed you what that lease levy would look like. So it's a very similar slide, in terms of formatting. if we were able to save that kind of $60,000 a year, this is the savings per year that these residential property taxpayers would see on their taxes. So like again, for $300,000 houses would be a reduction of $27 annually. The first step in the process, and this is not in front of you tonight, but I wanted to tell you, should you want to proceed forward with this, this is likely what you would see in September for board consideration is a resolution that we call a parameters resolution that approves us proceeding forward with the bond sale subject to certain parameters. It also allows us to submit an application to the state of Minnesota to be a part of their, what's called their credit enhancement program. This is an important program because the state of Minnesota is telling the bondholders that for any reason, if this school district cannot pay the bonds back, the state will step in and pay it. It's never been used by any school district, and we don't expect it to be used here, but it reduces your interest rate significantly because that bondholder, the lender to the school district, now has the taxpayers of the entire state of Minnesota behind it, not just your local taxpayers. So the parameters that, can you go back to the last slide? Actually, thank you. So the other parameters, key parameters, a part of that resolution is the board is providing authority to the superintendent or the business manager, director of business services. And so one of those two people and a school board officer to execute the bond sale, subject to, we have kind of preliminary proposed a minimum savings of $100,000. That is subject to the board's, input, of course. Now, I put that in there as kind of a starting point for the conversation. There's a maximum par of 16.6 million, and there's a deadline or an expiration on this resolution of February 1st of next year. So the minimum savings threshold, that is just to say, these people don't have the authority to do this without that being true. We're going to maximize this every dollar savings we can get in the day that we're in the market. And we're going to work on your behalf to do that. So this is just kind of like a floor of, hey, we don't want to even consider this if it's below that amount. Okay. And then the final slide I have here for you is a kind of a timeline of what this could look like if the board is interested in proceeding. In September, at your September board meeting, and as I understand from conversations, there's consideration of moving that. So it's September 9th now. If it's later in the month, that's not a problem. The parameters resolution would be considered, as I just described. We would go through the rating process at the end of September and release the information to the market to receive bids in around October 1st. To receive those bids in the middle of October, we have sometime between October 8th and October 14th. On October 14th, the board would have a second resolution to consider to ratify the sale of the bonds. The bonds would close on November 4th, which is the first day this can happen. With the call or the payoff, the switch out of the bonds would happen on February 1st of next year. So I'm happy to take any questions on.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So 2 times you mentioned this February 25th. So that's the first time we can do it. Is there a closing on the time?
There's not, no. Once you get every day past February 1st.
You lose yield.
Yeah, if we're not predictors of the market, right?
Right.
And so every day that you get past that, if interest rates stayed the same, there's a day where you could have reduced the interest rate that you didn't, right?
I was just wondering if there's like year 6 or 7 or whatever we're in now, you can do it, and then 8 you can't, or.
No, there's no,
Okay.
the only provision that you promise the current bondholders is you cannot pay them off until February 1st of 2025.
All right,
And the new bond would have a similar provision in it.
for a certain amount of years.
Yeah, and typically that is between 7 and 10 years from the date that you issue.
So you said if it was 745,000 or whatever it was, that's not all at once, so is that a yearly?
No, can you go back to slide 21? So that savings column there shows you by fiscal year Like it says 64,000, so in fiscal year 26, you're saving $64,000. In fiscal year 27, you're saving $69,000. You add them all together, that's how you get to the 745,000.
So does that mean each year, a portion of that, that's what goes back to the taxpayers, is it each year that it goes back to them?
Right, it would, I mean, there's not something that goes necessarily like goes back to them. You just levy less dollars each year. So they will see a lower tax rate than they would have otherwise if you don't do this.
The reason there's not a savings on that first year is because of the fees.
No, the reason the savings is there on the first year is because you already are committed to making the payment. So what that $2,300 is that we issue bonds in $5,000 increments and there's $2,300 extra when we put it all together.
I have a question. So suppose this board isn't sitting here, these same people in 4 years, or 3 years, and 2 years. And we move forward with this. And so basically the savings comes in our decision to levy less. And so if we have a new board sitting here in a couple of years and they want to levy to the max anyway, then it's that savings disappear.
No, they're not, every part of the levy is calculated differently, right? We just talked about the lease levy the debt service levy. You are required to and only allowed to levy based upon the actual payments that you have.
Okay.
So and when the bonds were originally sold, actually, this board doesn't really even have the authority to not make a levy for this. You've already promised it. And the county auditor is actually required to make sure you are gonna make the levy to pay back the bondholders. But when you reduce the payment down, you give the county new information and the state has new information, and you will only levy what you need to make the payments. And these funds are all within the debt service fund too. So it's not a part of your general fund.
Sure.
And so if for any reason you did build up a fund balance there, and it's normal to carry some fund balance in the debt service fund. The state does a calculation every year to make sure your fund balance isn't too big. And if it is too big, they reduce down your levy accordingly.
I just was trying to avoid like a future board making a mistake.
This is-
Going off a
This
wrong
is
way.
one place where in relation to the bonds that are already outstanding, the board doesn't have a lot of discretion about this part of the levy. The future board, of course, could do a new bond issue, which would affect the debt service levy, but they don't have the ability to change this once it's in place.
Okay.
So really, this would extend for 12 years.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so the last 3 or 4 years would likely, you might have an opportunity to do a gig again, depending upon where things are at that point in time.
Well, two things gotta work here. You gotta be far enough in that you can do it and the market has to be working for you.
Correct.
Because if the market was going the other way right now, we wouldn't be having this conversation, right?
Right, so the market has gone down some, I mean, interest rates have come, I said they've gone up in the last week, but they've come down significantly. Throughout this year, and so that's why the opportunity is in front of you.
It's good to see it now because I mean. At least you can see what's possible. I mean, We get further into it and that disappears and then you know.
We're pretty much talking about refinance, you know, what it is.
Exactly.
It's all
There you go.
refinancing our house. Right? Here it is.
It is just, I think some important things for the board and the community to understand that's different than a refinance is that we are not changing the term of these bonds. They were sold, they were set for 20 years. We're paying them off on the same exact date that we had originally intended to pay them off. We're just lowering the interest rate. And there's a little bit more process with it, but like the rating report that we're talking about is kind of synonymous to when you pull your credit rating. When you do a mortgage, it's kind of a similar sort of concept and idea.
Can you go back to the fees? What were the total in fees?
What slide is that on? So 22. So when you look at these underwriters discount, that is the fee of the firm that's actually purchasing the bonds and selling them to the folks who actually end up owning the bond. That is an estimate of what it is. It'll be part of the bid that we receive. So when we receive a bid, we receive two parts. It's an interest rate and their fee, which is in the form of an underwriter's discount. We have put that in. It could be more or less than that. And the way that the process is designed is that it's designed to, will award to the lowest bidder, like you would with many other things. The fee for PMA, you know, I wanted to call that out to because I'm in front of you tonight, so you can see what that could potentially look like. The other is an estimate, our estimate based upon having done this of the largest pieces of that are your attorneys that you hire to go through this process and the rating agency that writes a report within on the bond issue.
And which of those are we on the hook for sure? All of them? If we go through with this, we're on the hook for all of those fees, right?
If it closes, you are.
Closes,
If it
right.
gets done, the only one that is kind of not contingent is once we get to a certain point with the rating agency, there's a potential to owe them some funds, even if it does not get done.
Do you know what that is, averages?
I don't want to say a number and have it be wrong, but it's probably in the $15,000 to $20,000 range. And I'll follow up with you with something more exact and have that information for the board next month.
That's one of those things, you get to the refinance mark, right? It's like, yeah, we want to do it. Okay, but now with all your fees, we're only actually saving, $50,000 over the term or whatever. Will we know the total amount before we say yes, proceed with it, or is it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so the savings numbers I'm showing you are all after all of this is paid. So that's really the true benefit to the school district, right?
Yep.
And so that's sort of why we put the parameter metric to say, look, net of all of this stuff, all of the process, here's what is the actual benefit to the school district and its taxpayers. And that's why we have set it up that way.
So we could set it up as a parameter of, it has to be at least $400,000 of savings in order
Yes, you
for us to do it. So if we did something like that, once they write the report, so that report's good for 6 months. If we come into that and it comes out as only a $350,000 savings, do we just wait until the interest rate gets back to where that is and then we can pull the trigger on that?
Yes, you can just wait and monitor for a period of time. Of course, the higher the threshold that you set, it's a probability game, the less likely it is to get done. And so it's a matter of where do you want, if we came back to with $101,000 of savings, would that be a good thing for this board or not? So yeah, you have some options there. If it doesn't meet your target, then we just hit pause on things and we wait and monitor the markets.
I have a question that I think we discussed in the finance committee that I just wanted you to address here. So as we sit here tonight and listen to these three options that are available to us, we have the right to say yes to two of them, one to no, say no. We don't have to accept everything, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Does the finance committee have an opinion on, have you guys talked about what that return should be?
No, I don't know if we really discussed that. That's
Yeah, we-
discussed here for the first time, so. So no, we didn't really talk about that much.
I mean, you have $100,000 threshold in there now, right? What's a reasonable threshold? We're talking, it could be 745,000. Then we see a threshold of 100,000. I mean, what's a reasonable number? I mean, where do you see these? I mean, really, where do you see it landing? Doing this type of thing every day, you kind of see these numbers all the time, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's ultimately down to the I mean, I'm not in the game of predicting rates. I've said that a couple times now, right? And so is $100 saved a good thing, or is $50,000 saved or 75,000? if you come back and say that it has to be $1 million of savings, the likelihood of it getting done is not zero, but it's a lot less than if you say $100,000 savings. So if you would feel good about a 6-figure savings number, I think it's pretty likely that this will get to the finish line. And so it's really a matter of, you could, if you push the higher you push the threshold, it's just gonna make it, it's a matter of likelihood of finishing, of making the process through the finish line. Because the threshold is not gonna change the end result, other than whether or not it gets done. If you have $100,000 threshold and we can get you $1 million of savings, our the fee that we charge you does not change because the deal gets better. We do the same service and charge the same thing no matter how it goes through.
I just see the 745 and the eyes get real big and it's like, well, the threshold 100,000, so wait a second, you're like, can't we have a $500,000 threshold? You know what I mean?
You could, and the reason I got to 100,000 is that it had been as low as that earlier this summer.
Okay.
And we had shared that information with administration, and it's been, we're in a volatile time. Interest rates are volatile. The expectation of what's going to happen in the future is very volatile. With the Federal Reserve news, in case you weren't aware, we have a big election coming up in a couple months that lots of people talk about, and the market, the market reacts to differently every day, depending upon what kind of poll comes out. And in the short term, markets are emotional. In the long term, they're based on real fundamentals. So it's a matter of what's the riding the wave of it's hard to know in the short term what the fundamentals are that's going to actually play out over time. And the market ultimately is everybody's opinion grouped together. Kind of the market consensus is what people think it's going to be in the long run, but that changes from day to day. And we've seen some pretty wide swings, especially in the last few weeks.
But in the end, we'll know that number before we say, yep, pull the trigger, right?
In the end, what the board would be authorizing based on this resolution is that you are authorizing the superintendent and one of the officers of the board, as long as it meets this threshold,
To say, okay.
we're good.
Yeah.
And you can sign a contract to get this done. Now, the school board will still have an opportunity to ratify that result, but before we come back to that, there's already a contract to sell the bonds in place. And this process is important in terms of giving us the flexibility to help get to the market on the right day. We could go through a different process where we have to have the school board actually approve the sale, but that requires you to be meeting, and it gives us, it limits our flexibility, especially in a volatile time in terms of getting to the market on the the right day of the week. So like a really simple way to understand this is that I don't know, 7 out of 10 school boards in Minnesota meet on Mondays. Okay, I'm gone every single Monday night, but you can ask my wife. But that also means that if every school board sold their bonds on Mondays, then all of the bond sales would be on Mondays, which would mean that it's busy. So there's only so many people who bid on bonds across the country. And so one of the things we do is we often hold bond sales on Wednesdays because there are not very many school board meetings on Wednesdays, or city council meetings, or county board meetings on Wednesdays. And so you want to be the thing that people care about today in terms of the bid that they're putting in. So that gives us the flexibility to provide that kind of advice to you and that kind of guidance.
I feel like it'd be fun. We sit in a room and stocking. Watching the numbers go down. When do we want to do it? Do it. Ryan, bring his hammer. We can sell.
Ring the bell and we'll go.
Maybe not.
Yeah, it doesn't quite work like that, but it's a lot more manual than you would think. It's
You got a good imagination. Huh?
yeah.
The way you laid it out in my head anyway.
So with the timeline, if we were looking at this and said, you know what, $100,000 saved to our tax base is good enough to start out with, because eventually that'll get there and that'll go out. And we said, hey, we want to make that resolution tonight. How would that change this? And would that change what that percent could be or would be, or wouldn't it matter until that October timeframe?
No, it doesn't. This is the kind of the earliest schedule that you're allowed to do it on. So there's nothing you could do tonight to really speed up the process.
Okay.
that would be a different answer next month. You know, just because we're in September is sort of the time to move on it in terms of the timeframe that's allowed by the regulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is approval of donations by resolution. All right, does somebody want to introduce the acceptance of gifts to Royalton District?
So moved.
By Director Trout, thank you. Introduce the following resolution and moved its adoption. So, Pine Country Bank has generously donated $200 to the Royalton School District to use towards lunch on our new staff orientation day. Royalton Public Schools will be using the money towards a local food establishment. Second one is Clinton and Karen Kopkis have generously donated $2,500 to help grow the educational band program and purchase equipment for the Royalton Middle School and High School bands. And Clinton and Karen Kopkis have generously donated $500 to the Royalton Elementary School to benefit the physical education department. So be it resolved by the Royalton School Board to gratefully accept this gift. And thank you to Clinton and Karen again this year and to Pine Country Bank again for that. So the motion for adoption of the resolution was duly seconded by member
Rory.
Rory, thank you. And upon a roll call vote will be taken.
Director Trout. Aye. Director Boyd.
Aye.
Director Rory. Aye. Director Hackett.
Aye.
Director Hofstad.
Aye. All right. Nobody voted against and nobody abstained. So, approve this. 12th day. 2024. All right, thank you. All right, policy. So we have the first policy readings, coming to us of 424 license status, 522 Title IX sex non-discrimination policy, grievance procedure and process, 524 the internet technology and cell phone acceptable use and safety policy, and the form that goes with that. 705 investments, 706 acceptance of gifts, 707 transportation of public school students, and the preschool student pickup and drop off transportation policy. 719 is a transportation pickup and drop off policy, and 724 is ECSE student drop off transportation policy. So those are all the first readings that we'll be looking at in September or October here. Second policy reading, I talked about 902 already, use of school district facilities and equipment. Still in the middle of completely revamping that one. And then the approval of the third policy reading. So we have 503 student attendance, and I already talked about those. 704, the inventory of fixed assets and the asset accounting system, and 807 health and safety. So I'll take a motion to approve the third policy readings, 503, 704, and 807.
So moved.
Right, by Director Hackett,
I'll second.
second by Director Trout. Thank you. Any discussion on those? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, meeting schedule. Wednesday, August 28th at noon for the finance meeting. And at 1 p.m. for the policy meeting. Any issues with those? All right, and then the next one in your board briefing, we had talked about changing September 9th to move to the 24th. Are there any issues with the 24th?
Tuesday, September 24th.
Yes.
Yes.
I have a conflict that day. I have another meeting to go to that night. Was there a reason we couldn't do Monday? Because
Monday the 23rd.
The 23rd.
Heidi has a conflict
Okay.
for a different. Wednesday, we could probably do Wednesday, the 25th. If that works. For board members, I don't know about. With church, with religion. For kids, right? That affects any of you.
I mean, I can make the 24th work if I. Yeah. If it works for everybody else, I don't want to change it for me, that's for sure. I can just-
Well, I'm good with the 25th as well.
Good with either.
Okay. What was the 25th for you?
It's fine.
Okay, does that work? Yeah.
25th then?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
That Heidi, that works for you.
Okay, so we'll do 6 PM on the 25th. For the next meeting. And then,
Policy.
so. The next policy meeting, instead of being on the 25th. We want to move that to Wednesday, October 2nd. How's that work for you?
It's not finance too, on the 25th.
Yes,
Does that move to the October 2nd?
I think we would want to move that earlier because you usually. Because that means we don't have. Oh, wait, when do we have? our
We
next
have one
one?
on the 28th of August.
Right, yeah, so we could move that. Yes,
October
we
2nd.
could- we could move
Later.
both of those to the following. Week. It Works for everyone.
oh, so September 25th will be our next meeting and we'll get the packet then, so we'll need until October 2nd to.
Yeah, that
It
works.
works.
For October 2nd.
Yeah, everything works right now,
Okay,
so if we want to put both of those.
Yep. Is finance good with October 2nd?
Yep.
Okay. I'll talk to Rick Bowen on that. So noon for finance. And 1300, 1 o'clock for policy. All right, and then we will, anything else? Meeting schedule wise?
Strategic planning is September 17th at 6 P.M.
That's where?
Cavitron, yep. Oh, I welcome.
All right. And now we're gonna close the meeting for superintendent evaluation as permitted by Minnesota statute 13D.05. So can I get a motion to close the regular meeting at 7:32 PM? By Director Strout,
Second.
second by Director Hackett. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? All right. motion carries. We'll resume in 10 minutes, 7:43.
When they